of our fierce union and the leader of the Stand United slate. I want to give the mic up, and let's give a big hand to John Samuelson.
So thank you everybody for coming out this evening. I know when we came in the door it was light. By the time everybody leaves it'll be dark. It's going to be dark in a few minutes. Tommy mentioned it, but I do want to introduce a few MOW folks that came out to support Tony Yacano. As you know, is the Vice President of Maintenance Away. Long time. Tony! Long time media rep in Local 100. John Giarella is the Chair, Line Equipment Signal.
Those guys get crazy all the time too.
But that division is up to about 2,900. And think about this, when I was the Vice President of Maintenance Away, back in 2005, the division was at 2,000 or 2,100, 2,000. And Richie Rocco is the Chair of Structure Division. So, and they just came out to support. Now, I'm going to bounce all over the place. I'm going to start with the farming out of work issue, and the reason that Maintenance Away is over 8,000, and the reason that John Giarella and Tony grew that division from 2,000 up to 2,900, and the reason that Rocco is over 2,000 now as well. And Structure, when I was the Vice President of Maintenance Away, Structure was at about 1,600. Track is over 2,000 now too, for the first time. So it's very relevant to this, other than for these guys to brag a little bit about what they've done. Now, Tony runs a department, an 8,000 member department. These guys are dead on top of the work that's going to outside contractors. They attack what's called the farming out meetings. They attack those meetings, and they go and they target in jobs, and they work collectively with me. They identify jobs that are going to outside contractors, and they say, you know what, Local 100 in-house forces can do that work. They identify it. They come to, if they can't fix it themselves and bring it in, which they do a lot. They come to me, and me and Tony sit down and have a meeting with the president of the New York City Transit Authority or even the chairman of the MTA over particular projects. We've done even a good chunk of that recently to where we now have work 6, 7, 8 years out from now. And bear in mind, a lot of these signal maintainers, a lot of structure maintainers, even track workers are making 120 grand a year right now with their overtime. And so why is that important? It's important because it exemplifies what CED could be if there was a vice president and a division committee in place that had their priorities straight and that were willing to work with the president of the union to advance the membership inside CED and to give everybody in this room a step up in their ability to take care of their family, overtime, work coming in the door from outside contractors. We rebuilt the whole Canarsie tube on overtime. In the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, it was on its way. What's that? I'm sorry, the Greenpoint tube. That's why Tony's there. We rebuilt that whole Greenpoint tube on overtime in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. It was going to outside contractors. We took it in, put a ton of guys to work. A ton of guys made a lot of money over the last couple of years working on that tube. Again, it's not about Maintenance Away, it's about CED, because this is what we want to do inside CED. Many times I had conversations with Tommy Carano and Eugene about what's out there, what we're able to do when we work collectively as a team. We can bring work in, we can stop the harassment on the floor of Coney Island shop, we can stop the general superintendent, or whatever he is, Morano, who's just doing some really dastardly things up in 207. We can do that, but we can't do anything if the vice president and division officers inside CED want to spend all their time trying to trip up the president and to try to position themselves for an election that's years out. Well, 3 years ago, that's the quest they began, and here we are 3 years later at another election, and CED has done nothing but sink further into abyss, really. The members in CED are definitely not in better shape than they were 3 years ago, and the members in every other division of the union that's under contract have advanced themselves. And it's actually, if you take a step back and think about it, it's actually heartbreaking. It doesn't have to be this way. There's a path forward for everybody in CED. There's a path forward to pave the way to bringing in projects that are going to create overtime. There's a path forward to having the type of relationship with the company where they're afraid to harass somebody on the floor of a shop. There's a path forward to actually blend, once again, to reintegrate CED into the affairs of Local 100. For 3 years, I have not had a complaint from Nelson Rivera about any boss doing anything bad inside CED. It took until about 4 months ago, or maybe 6 months ago, for a member to send me an email about the pig problems inside CED. And that's the point in time that I assigned Arthur Schwartz to work the cases, to deal with it, and began conversing with Arthur Schwartz. But if there was a pig issue going on like that in any other division in the system, where there was a massive problem regarding a seniority pick, the vice president would have picked up the phone, would have called me and said, "We have issues. We need to fix these issues. Let's meet and discuss how to get our members out from underneath this problem." And if he couldn't fix it, we would have went right to the president of the company and we would have fixed it. So that's just an illustration of one thing that Nelson decided that he was going to hide from me, and decided that he was going to try to sweep under a rug. That just got out of hand, and it could have been fixed early on had he just come to me like every other division chair or vice president of the union and said, "We have a problem, let's try to address it." But he didn't do that. He chose instead to spend the last 3 years undermining the leadership of the union. And again, I'm not hurt because of it. I'm hurt in that the union itself is sinking inside CED. But the great harm that was done by Nelson was done to the very people that are in this room in front of me. That's who was injured by his actions. So we're at a very, very, very interesting time in this union, in the future of this union. You ever hear the saying that pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered? Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. Well, at the executive board meeting today, the executive board began to hear in totality the charges against the division committee, Shirley Martin and Mike Russell included, and the charges in today were heard against Mike Russell were heard, but they cheated. They filled in names of people into the books that weren't even in the building at the time of the meeting. In one instance, there's a very, very prominent supporter of Toussaint and Campbell and Nelson that is signed into the book with about 4 or 5 different signatures into the attendance book in order for them to try to get him to qualify to run. Now, they cheated, they got caught, and Mike Russell got removed from office today by the executive board. He's no longer the recording secretary. And he threw everybody under the bus, by the way. He threw everybody under the bus. When he came to the hearing, he said, "Listen, I didn't have anything to do with that fraud." This is essentially what he said. That fraud was all on somebody else, but I admit I didn't take care of the book. So do it, I admit it. I was a horrible recording secretary.
Back to Charlie.
I'm not the one who did that fraud. So he was removed, and this presents us with an incredible opportunity inside CED. And it may be the first and last time that we have this opportunity to make change in CED. By removing Mike Russell, they lose their whole entire division slate on a ballot inside CED, and I hope people understand what I'm saying.
Which means what, Mr. Sanderson? What does that mean?
Which means that on the ballot, you're going to see the Stand United slate, which with all of the division officers underneath me, including the executive board, including Tom Carano for VP, Eugene, and everybody else on down, including the executive board. And then when you go next door to Joe Campbell's slate, Roger Toussaint's slate, you're going to see his candidates, then you're going to see Nelson Rivera, and underneath that, everything's going to be blank. And all of his candidates are passed into the category. And why? Because they decided that they were going to try to cheat their way into this election. And pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. They overstepped their bounds. They were stupid about it, and they got caught. It demonstrated a level of arrogance that I still can't quite wrap my arms around, how they could be so arrogant and so unintelligent in the way, and clumsy in the way that they did it. Now, so this is an incredible opportunity. The slate vote is the way that people get elected in Local 100, and absent their ability to deliver a slate vote on the division inside CED, this is our moment to actually right the ship inside car maintenance and actually take down Nelson and send them back to 207 or whatever the hell you want to do. So just on to a new topic, a couple of other things. I know some folks are on their break. People are on their break, right? Now have to go back?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you left already. Oh, you're going to go back? All right, I'll make it really quick. Listen, 6 years ago we inherited a union that was in a horrible state of disarray. We were homeless. We were functionally bankrupt. The union was functionally bankrupt. We owned a union hall on 80 West End Avenue. The union hall was sold for $62 million or so. A little over a year later, it was flipped for over $90 million, and then about a year after that, it was flipped again for $180 million. So, Local 100 members were dealt just an incredible injustice in the way that our home, our union hall on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, was dealt with. So when I came into office, we were paying $130,000 a month in rent to a landlord that owned what used to be our building. We were paying $130,000 a month to stay there. The lease expired a year later. The lease expired, so we were expelled. We were then, $130,000 wasn't good enough. We were then expelled from what was our home, where the TW logo stood for a few decades. So eventually now, we've made our way into downtown Brooklyn. We had a brief stop at 53rd Street and Broadway, but we made our way into downtown Brooklyn. We're on 195 Montague Street. We bought a 65,000 square foot union hall, commercial condominium space. I've heard some people criticize that move. One thing everybody needs to bear in mind is that when we took over the leadership of the union, even though the building was sold for $62 million, there was $25 or $26 million left in the bank. A lot of money had been absolutely pissed away on nonsense, like a drunken sailor just out on a binge. That's how that money was spent. So we shopped around for building after building, finally came to the commercial condominium space that we own now and own outright. And if folks haven't seen it, please come down there and take a look at your union hall, which is actually spectacular. But the one thing that I want to say is we paid about $24 million for the 65 million square feet, and we've broken the pattern of horrible real estate moves by Local 100 as an institution. And that property that we paid $24 million 2 years ago is now worth $35 or $36 million. The floors that we bought, are going to be worth 3 or 4 times the amount of money that we paid for it within the next 5 or 6 years. We got in at the exact right time. Now, going back to when we took over, the union was in a complete state of disarray. The union was riddled with infighting. The union was just, the morale of the entire union was absolutely horrific. We spent a lot of time building bridges back to and bringing people together. Let's say that, bringing people together. We ended infighting across most of the union, and the one place where it remains, and the one place where the members are being adversely affected is right here, inside CED. So, again, this is our moment to actually change leadership in CED, advance the members, protect your families, advance your livelihood. This is the chance to do it. This is it. We're here right now. So I'm going to talk about the contract, and then I'm going to hand the mic back over to Tom Carano. I know there's probably a lot more that I can talk about. So we were in an incredibly precarious place 3 years ago. Very, very, very dangerous waters we were swimming in. In the lead up to the contract, and I'm sure many folks in the room know it, but in the lead up to the contract, every single public sector union in New York State that settled contracts settled for 3 zeros and huge healthcare concessions. And when I say huge, huge, like $5,000 out of pocket for family health coverage. By the time we got to the bargaining table, 330,000 or so New York State workers had settled for the 3 zeros and had established a pattern. So on top of that demand, the company wanted to introduce part-timers into the workforce, which everybody would understand is death to Local 100, death. They wanted to farm out all the station maintenance work, cleaning, including routine maintenance, which would have devastated us, farming that out. And they wanted to eliminate the 2-person train crew. So in addition to the zeros, in addition to the precedent that had been set by all the other unions, they wanted all of these internal concessions that really would have damaged us very badly. So, to make a long story short, we fought our way through that. Every single union in the city, including the New York City unions, all took zeros. They all gave up big chunks of their retroactive pay and concessions on healthcare. We actually came out of this with raises in every year, with full retroactive pay when everybody else took zeros. We got raises in every year, and we came out of the contract with some gains that we never had before, like lifetime spousal coverage, which is worth a huge amount of money to us. It's worth about a wage point a year. And for anybody who doesn't know, we have it. If our wives or husbands pass away in retirement, say you retire at 55 and you pass away at 56, your spouse and your minor children would then get medical coverage until they're grown up or until your spouse becomes Medicare eligible. That was never before. That never happened to us before. And it's worth a lot of money. The union's been trying to win it for a long time. We won it in the last contract. We won paternity and maternity leave for the first time ever, fully paid 2 weeks off. Fully paid 2 weeks off if you have a baby. We won a whole bunch of other games. Yeah, we won, and I don't know if anybody here makes use of it, but we won for the first time ever the right to ride the Long Island Railroad and Metro North. That's cool. That's cool. That's huge. And despite the efforts of the antagonists that just want to be critical about everything, the benefit, as everybody who uses it would know, is not taxable. It is not a taxed benefit. So, with all of that said, in the last contract, we had to fix a lot of problems that the union had been trying to fix for years. We had to get the spousal coverage, lifetime spousal coverage. We had to address areas of the medical benefit, and there's still work to do. I recognize that, but we took a great leap forward with the optical benefits. We're on our way to fixing the dental. We'll fix it more in the next contract. Long-standing problems that needed to be corrected. In addition to fighting off the zeros, in addition to fighting off part-timers and farming out. So, but with that said, as we go into the next contract, fight. A lot of the problems that plagued us are now corrected. There is not a pattern of zeros out there that we can get dragged into binding arbitration and slammed with. So as we go into the next contract fight, it's all about wages, and it's all about figuring out a way to put money into local 100 members' pockets. We don't have the institutional problems that plague us again. We don't. So, again, we go into the next contract, things like night differential, which we're now suffering from a 30-year-old concession. Night differential, we're going to go after night diff. We're going to go after straight-up wage increases. We're going to fight the same type of fight. We're not going to jeopardize people's livelihoods, and we're not going to agree to concessions. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And the last thing I'm going to say, I'm not afraid to strike. I've fought with a lot of powerful people at this point. If anybody hasn't noticed, that we seem to be in a big fight with Mayor de Blasio. Like every 3 weeks, something new erupts. And so we've taken on power when we've had to take on power. In January of 2015, the first conversation I ever had with Governor Cuomo was because I went in front of television cameras and told Cuomo to take your three zeros of wage increases and shove them up your ass.
That's right.
On television, and the next day I got a phone call from the governor. That's the first time I ever talked to the governor. Because it made the network, the president of Local 100 told Cuomo to take his 3 zeros and shove them up his ass. We took on de Blasio when he arrested bus operators, and we beat him. We took on de Blasio when he tried to defund the transit system, and we beat him. We're not afraid to take on power. We would strike if we had to. But the idea, and I forever reject the idea, which I've seen in my 23 years on this job repeatedly, that we have to set a strike deadline. We must set a strike deadline, and we must rattle sabers, even if we're not prepared to strike, and even if we're just bluffing. And then because we set a strike deadline, that we believe that former leaders of this union believe they had to abide by, your choices are simple. You either have to strike or accept a bunch of concessions in order to meet your deadlines. And I will never, ever set a strike deadline up without the intention of going through with a strike if we have to. And I will never set a strike deadline up and then run scared and say, just to meet the deadline, I'm going to run back to the bosses and eat a bunch of concessions that we don't need to eat. So we've moved in an incredibly responsible way. We haven't jeopardized anybody's livelihoods. For the first time ever, we beat the other public sector unions, including the uniform services in New York City with that last contract. And we're poised to have a solid negotiation this time forward. That's all about putting money in our pockets so that we can take care of our families in a better way. We don't come to work because we like the New York City Transit Authority. They're a bunch of pricks. We all realize that. We come to work to put money in our pocket, to take care of our families, and that's what this next contract negotiation is going to be about. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming.